Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Roopsi Khurana and I'm from Communications Office at National Center for Biological Sciences. We are glad and honored to have you all join us today. Today's event is about celebrating wildlife of India, but it's also a little more than that. It's going to take you through a journey with journey into some of the pristine forests of India, but also it's going to talk about how science, management, and communication can come together to shape the future of wildlife in India. So, without taking any more time, let me please invite Professor L.S. Shashidhara, who's Director of NCBS, to say a few words about the event today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good morning and thanks for coming from different places. I'm told there are students have come from Kerala and Mysore and other places, and also quite a few people through the Bangalore traffic. Thank you very much. So I represent here the National Center for Biological Sciences. It's a premier research institution in the area of biological sciences. And when I say biological sciences, it looks very textbookish kind of a word. In a way, we work on all aspects of life. We're trying to understand both from the deeper insights into the very different mechanisms which finally come as emergent property, what we call as life. So we have people working in the area of origin of life. We have people working in the area of what constitutes a cell as a living system, how do very different biochemical reactions happen in interconnected and physiological processes emerge from those interconnectedness of those molecules. People work at the organism level, like human body. Very different organs are positioned along the body axis, and then they are interconnected through physiological systems, and then we function as one individual, although we're made up of 50 trillion cells, plus several trillion cells of stem cells and microbiome. Then we also have people working at the population level, where very different individuals within the species interact with each other and constitute what is called a population, which evolve in a given ecosystem and habitat. And then we also look at the life at the ecological and what called as forest ecosystems, where multiple different species interact with each other, right? And this talk today, this discussion today is about how this large ecosystem is sustained for close to about 3 billion years and is evolved. And evolved in the size, in the complexity, it's evolved in time scales in variety of different ways. And what we see as biodiversity around us, right? And India is one of the major hotspots of biodiversity in the world. We have Western Ghats, we have Northeast biodiversity, we have fantastic marine biodiversity, and also the freshwater biodiversity and so forth. And again, within the land, terrestrial land, we have a variety of different kinds of ecosystem, like rainforest to deciduous forest to savanna type ecosystem. And each one needs to be protected. And the reason we need to protect is, one is of course from philosophical understanding that every life is important. And the second one is more selfish reasons that without this surrounding biodiversity, we can't have our own life. Our health, our food, our nutrition is dependent on the surrounding biodiversity. So it's also important to conserve it for the sake of it. Given India's large human biodiversity, given India's huge socio-economic diversity, it's even more important to conserve nature, because otherwise we cannot achieve what's called social equity in access to food and nutrition and livelihood for people without conserving the Indian biodiversity. So as you can see here, the science of what we study is directly related to the societal, the benefits at every scale. As an individual benefits, for example, we work on health, we work on brain disorders, we work on cancer, we work on infectious diseases, where individuals benefit because of the health research that we do. And at the same time, we also have work in the area of infection that is a whole public health related context. At the same time, when we work in the area of ecology and biodiversity and conservation, it has much more and larger impact and under One Health context. So given this, it's important to connect So molecules to organs to individuals to populations to the whole ecosystem, because that's what life is all about. That's how it has evolved. And without that, either we can understand individuals, we will not understand population, we will not understand the ecosystem. So I think that's the modern science is all about. Tools were not available earlier. Tools were very expensive earlier. The modern days, with genomics, with cost has come down, and the tools are available, both computational tools as well as the experimental tools, to look at even a whole forest as it's much more at the mechanistic level of how this ecosystem has evolved and established is a certain kind of an equilibrium, and how very different environmental changes, particularly human-caused climate change, is affecting our biodiversity. All of these things can be looked at using molecules to and very different other levels of parameters, different levels of complexity using tools. For example, it could be camera trap, it could be drones, it could be satellite images, and then of course manually you collect lots of information about, including the, let's say, photosynthesis rate in a forest system and so forth. So in this story today, we are going to discuss one such story, and as you can see here, the such stories, such discoveries, thus applications of the knowledge to solve real life problem cannot be done by one individual, not one organization. It is a multidisciplinary effort, multi-institutional effort, and it's not only a few scientists, it also requires quite a few people from very different sectors of the society. And the story we are going to discuss today, I keep using the word story, but it's actually a phenomenal achievement in science management and the forest management. So the people who are involved, of course, scientists from NCBS. One of them is Uma Ramakrishna, is most accomplished scientist in this area. She is a field biologist, goes and muddies her hands and the clothes to collect samples. It could be caves to collect bat samples, or to go to another deep forest to get scat samples or hair samples of tigers, for a variety of different types of animals. She's also in the lab, does very high-end work in the area of genomics and computational meta-analysis of genomics. And she is a fellow of all our Indian National Science Academies and also fellow of American Academy of Arts and Science. She's also recently this year got elected as a fellow of European Molecular Biology Organization. She's the first wildlife biologist to get elected to a molecular biology organization, which is more reductionist biology. Other people who have helped in this, Prasenjeet Yadav, who is the story writer and the person who actually connected the forest departments to the people who do work in the lab. So the lab to land or lab to forest connection. And also a large number of very enthusiastic, knowledgeable, and science-driven forest management experts are involved in this. Just to mention a few names: Debabrata Swain, Manoj Nair, Sushanta Nanda, Prem Jha, Prabhakar, Gognaini, Samrat Gowda. They're all from Odisha Forest Department who directly got involved in this particular story. But as you know, tigers move around all over the country, not just in one or two places. This kind of efforts had to be put in other places too. We have very, very enthusiastic support and also direct involvement by particularly Forest Department of Maharashtra, of which Jitendra Amgaonkar, Nandakishore Kale, and Prabhunath Chikla, all three are here, and they also participated in this effort. Unfortunately, Shushatananda had come to the airport to fly to Bangalore, and we had to go back because of some death in the family, and so he couldn't attend. But otherwise, we have a very good gathering today, and thank you very much. And special thanks to Ms. Rohini Nidekani, who is here and who is actually gracing this occasion, also moderating the discussion. Is an enthusiast in matters related to environment and biodiversity conservation. Her efforts has contributed immensely at the nation to three different sectors, are all interconnected: health, education, and environment. And NCBS is particularly beneficiary of your philanthropic contributions. We have set up what's called Center for Brain and Mind to understand much of the most complex aspect of brain function and why in some individuals there could be some disorders leading to complex disease kind of a problems, right? So in that context, again, welcome, Rohini, and thank you very much for sparing some time with us. And a large number of dignitaries have come here, and those who are, the general public to, friends of NCBS, and welcome you all. And we also have Professor Vijay Raghavan, the founder director of NCBS, who actually conceived that a place like NCBS, along with Obesity Kid, the founder, the two of them conceived that a place like NCBS should not become only lab biologists, and they should actually connect to the outside world. Outside world, obviously, people, renewed work on health, and then the the field biology when you want to connect to other parts of the life. Thank you very much, and we'll have a very productive discussion today. And I invite Uma to start the presentation.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. Good. Shall I go?
I just set it
Oh.
up. Yeah.
So thank you so much everyone for coming, and I'll try to be very brief because I'm sure you're much more excited to hear from Prasenjeet, who's really the star here today. So as Shashi said, and as we all know, India is surrounded, we are surrounded by tremendously beautiful wildlife, which, as Shashi said, has evolved for millions of years. And not only do we have these different species, but we also have a lot of variation in individuals of a species. And this whole canvas of variation has been created by genetics and millions of years of evolution. And so one such really interesting story, I'm sorry for the resolution of this figure, it's a really old newspaper clipping, was a story from Similipal, where the people who lived there talked of a black tiger. And no one ever believed them. They said, oh, you're making it up, you're imagining it. Until in 1993, a black tiger individual attacked the youth, and the youth killed this tiger in self-defense. And that was the first proof that such an individual, this blackish-looking tiger, existed. Since then, it became kind of a myth, a story, a mystery, which everyone was fascinated by. And in fact, many people, for example, A.K. Lala Singh, wrote a book called Born to be Black, exploring these mysteries. But only when the era of camera trapping started, we were able to see the lives of these creatures in the forest, which we were never able to see if we just walked through. Because cameras had eyes in the night over many, many days, and these pictures started coming up. This is a picture from down to earth, and you can see in the background there the camera trap, which has become an essential part of Indian forests now as we survey our wildlife, the largest wildlife survey in the world actually, which is organized by the government of India. And of course, this was really curious, but people probably wondered, okay, why does this tiger look black? And at that point in time, a forest officer, Mr. Devabrata Swain, Dr. Devabrata Swain, was the field director of Similipal, approached me 2016 or so and said, there are these black tigers, can you figure out why they are black? And his basic questions were, why are they black? Why do they look this way? Why do they live only here? It seems like a simple-minded question, but as a scientist, answering that question is really difficult. For example, if I ask you, what is the genetic basis of diabetes? It sounds simple, but it's actually really complex. Many, many genes are involved. But in this case, actually scientific intuition paid off, and I'll tell you why. So there are some people who are fascinated by, color morphs in tigers, and work from actually a group in China had explored, black tigers, not black tigers, orange, white, and golden and snow white tigers. So basically, tigers have three colors: white, black, and orange. And if you have no black, you're golden, this individual here. In fact, there are wild individuals of this form in Kaziranga. If you have no orange, you're a white tiger, and white tigers are famous from the area around Rewa and Madhya Pradesh. They've been exported to the world. They're all over the world in zoos now. And this guy is a double mutant, which has both mutations for golden as well as white, and it's a snow white tiger. But our black tiger doesn't look like any of these, and that's because it's not a color morph, it's not a color mutation, but it's actually a pattern mutation. Okay? So this is some work done quite some years ago in 2012 by scientists at Stanford. They were curious about, why this cat looks different from this cat. And basically they found that mutations or spelling mistakes in the DNA in a specific gene called TACPEP results in the loss of patterning. So basically instead of having regular stripes and a genetic kind of mechanism which is start, stop, you have something which goes all over the place, goes away. And basically it was immediately a hunch, given that we knew this work, it was immediately a hunch that, well, maybe the genetic basis of this black tiger is not as complex as something like diabetes or cancer. It's a simple potential spelling mistake. That's what was very nice was they also showed generalizability, very important in science, and really something very beautiful about genetics. So while the cheetah here doesn't have stripes like the cat, it has an irregular pattern, again with mutations in the same gene, but different mutations or different spelling mistakes. So that's the beauty of genetics. Another animal, a similar phenotype, it must be the same gene. And with that in mind, we basically started this research. And of course, research is very much a team activity, and I must acknowledge Vinay Sagar, a PhD student, who took on this project and really did all of this work. Luckily for us, we had a set of individuals born in a zoo, Nandankanan Zoo. It was a litter which had a white tigers as a mother and a bunch of cubs. One was white, and we call it a pseudomelanism because it's not completely black. And then there was a son who was pseudomelanic, and two normal individuals. And now you have a family, you have a potential gene, and what do? You basically build a pedigree, you sequence the genome, and you look through this gene for mutations which may result in this gene being non-functional or something like that. And surprisingly, or with a lot of luck, we actually found such a mutation, and this spelling mistake was 200 times more likely to cause this black phenotype compared to any other mutation which we had read in this pedigree. That's fine, that's the zoo. What about in the wild? So we went back to, we went back to Similipal. Oh, it went ahead. Yeah, okay. We went back to Similipal, walked through the forest, collected fecal samples, because at that time there was a very low density of tigers there, brought them back to the lab, extracted DNA, identified tigers, identified individuals based on various approaches, and then designed experiments just to look for this spelling mistake, right? And we were able to find it, and what was amazing was we found that the frequency or the commonness of the spelling mistake was almost 60%, which is crazy because it didn't seem to be anywhere else. There were no black tigers anywhere else in Indian landscapes, right? So why then was the frequency here so high? Why was it so common? Well, first of all, the reason for this is because Similipal is actually isolated. It's far away from any other tiger reserve, and you can see that here it's genetically distinct. And also, individuals in Similipal are almost as related to each other as siblings. So in general, members of a family are more likely to share traits, and so as a result, you seem to see inbreeding and isolation without gene flow, which is a homogenizing force which may change these frequencies over time. Did we just miss it somewhere else? As scientists, we have to confirm that what we have found is right. So we actually, this took us 2 years after the discovery. We went through and collected about 400 samples from across tiger range, and we found that it was nowhere else. So it was rare everywhere else or absent, but very common here. Okay, so basically that's when we thought of this idea. I mean, it's a very well-known concept called drift. That is when you have a bottleneck or a crash in population size, what happens? Suddenly a few individuals survive, and then they lay the foundation for the population. They are the founders, and basically it just so happens maybe that, for example, this is an example from Khan Academy, but if you, instead of white beetles, you could imagine black tigers, you can imagine how when there's a bottleneck, very few individuals survive, all the descendants could be related and also share this black mutation. So we confirmed that with simulations, and basically we found that the only way there could be a higher frequency of this black allele is if there was a very, very strong bottleneck sometime in the past. Okay, so then we thought, we suggested in the paper as well that this population is small, it's isolated, we had only identified 12 minimum individuals, and a very common, not common, but a new strategy which is adopted now in the case of such isolated inbred populations is of course ideally connectivity, but if connectivity is not possible, because for whatever reason Similipal is not connected, is this concept of genetic rescue, where you introduce new genetic variation and then that increases the heterozygosity and lowers the inbreeding in the population. And we suggested this over long interactions with the Odisha Forest Department. They were convinced, and basically, of course, they did all the hard work, getting the permissions for such translocation, working with the Maharashtra team to make it happen, and so on and so forth, right? Just very briefly, how did we suggest a source? Which is the best population where tigers could come from? So we've developed a new framework, which we have not yet published, it's in the works, but we developed kind of a matrix which suggested to us that tigers from central India have high genetic variation, so they're good to bring in, and populations, individuals particularly from Tadoba have lower overlapping genetic load or potential bad mutations. So that's how the whole story kind of happened. Of course, all the hard work for translocation was managed by the Forest Department, and all this time, for many years, I have been interacting with Prasenjeet as a colleague and a friend, sharing stories, and then basically this whole story happened. So of course, research always goes on, it never ends. So where are we now? I'll just take a minute to tell you. Well, we sampled in the field again in 2023. The earlier sampling was 2018, and already the frequency of the black allele has gone to 75%. So it will probably fix unless there is gene flow, which decreases its frequency. We've also been able to perfect approaches to sample shed hair from individuals we have not seen, basically based on camera trap and figuring out territories and so on, and we have sequenced high-depth whole genomes from these individuals. So now we can really look at inbreeding impacts in the wild versus earlier we were working with fecal samples. And we really want to understand the past. So we've sampled about 350 trophies from across India and the UK to really understand when did Similipal become isolated? How did this process of isolation start? So I'll just stop there and thank all the people that I've had the pleasure of working with, and thank you so much for that.
Thanks everyone for listening to these wonderful talks. I am sure that some of you have already planned your trips to Similipal. If you haven't, this is the time. Okay, for the last segment of today, we have a panel discussion. Please allow me to invite our esteemed guests today. We have Ms. Rohini Nilekani, Chairperson, Rohini Nilekani Foundation, who's going to moderate the panel discussion today. Dr. Jitendra Ramgaonkar, Chief Conservator of Forest, Wildlife, Mumbai, Maharashtra. Sir, please, can I have you on the stage? Sir Prabhunath Shukla, Field Director, Tadoba Andheri Tiger Reserve, Maharashtra. Dr. Devash Panda, Scientist, Wildlife Institute of India, Dehradun. Mr. Nandan Kishore Khare, Assistant Inspector General of Forests, National Tiger Conservation Authority, Central India Region, Maharashtra. Dr. V.V. Robin, Associate Professor, IISER, Tirupati. Professor Uma Ramakrishnan, NCBS, Bangalore. Thank you.
Yellarigu Namaskara. How are you doing? That was such a wonderful session. Thanks Prasenjeet for that story and Uma for the explanation. I'm delighted to be here with this panel today. Prasenjeet, your story did remind me of my 5-year search for the Black Panther of Kabini and how he would not come out at all for years and years and years. But wonderful, thank you. Such an important story that we are here to disseminate and talk about. So, you know, maybe Devash, I'll start with you. As a scientist at the Wildlife Institute of India, which actually does a lot of the, I would say, much of the research, government approved institution which does a lot of the research on wildlife and conservation. Can you continue what they left off with? What is the future of Similipal now, and what is there more to do other than this translocation of tigers, which apparently is going well?
I would say it's a landscape of hope.
It is or isn't it?
It is.
It is.
It is
Okay.
very much.
Great.
Because Similipal is one place which was in complete disarray, say I would say 2007, 2008, and I mean it was completely broken from all sides. People were hunting animals. The entire infrastructure was dismantled by the civil unrest, and there was absolutely no hope that time. Then suddenly comes a band of dedicated managers who come and completely transform the place. And if we think that it is, whatever you saw, these tigers getting camera trapped and all, it's not one day or one night effort. It has happened over decades. And when everything was going on right in Similipal, suddenly there was a spate of unfortunate events in which two staff lost their lives. The frontline staff of the department, they lost their life. And fortunately, that was the time.
And this was through tiger attacks or elephant?
No, they were shot by people, poachers.
Oh.
Okay, so they protested. See, there is this thing in Similipal that goes on mass hunting. People come in large numbers, 30, 40, 50, 60 people come together. Whatever animals come in front, they tend to hunt it. So these one range officer and one forest guard, they single-handedly they try to prevent this gang of people entering inside the forest. I won't say poachers, simply because hunting is a way of life in that part of the country. So naming them as poachers will be unfair. So they single-handedly tried to protest, and they were shot down by these poachers. And that was, I think, the turning point in the recent history of Similipal. And fortunately, the state was being led by an extremely dynamic and visionary forest officer who was the chief wildlife warden. So, like Prime Minister, when he went to Gir after the death of lions, he asked the authorities, you give me your wish list, ensure that no lion is getting killed. So, like this, Mr. Nanda, who was the chief wildlife warden, he asked the Similipal authorities to give their wish list. Everything was sanctioned. Today, I would say I have been working very closely in Similipal for past year and a half, although I have some more years of experience of working there. In my opinion, I would say it's one of the best managed tiger reserves in the country.
So one is, very quickly, because we have many panelists to come, what made the difference? So one is, yes, you get the right people. Anything else, very briefly, any two things?
A very pragmatic approach.
Pragmatic
that
approach.
we can make the difference. Things can be brought back, and the belief that nature is amazingly resilient, that's what held the key there.
Again, sorry, you have to be very quick, but the community here is really at odds perhaps with what the forest department wants to do. How do you win over the local communities? What needed to be done?
First thing, to protect one area, enforcement is absolutely necessary.
Enforcement.
You protect the area first. It's a carrot and stick approach. Unless you have the stick, people will eat the entire carrot. So you protect the area, you look after the people. So that's what has worked in Similipal. There is nothing new. It's just the basic principle of protecting a forest, protecting its wild animals. When you strictly adhere to it, it works, and it has worked in Similipal.
Right. Let me move to Mr. Ramgaonkar. You were the field director of Tadoba, so moving from Similipal to Tadoba, where the story continues. What were the challenges? And I don't know, some places in India I've seen, I'm not giving you my tigers, I'm not giving you my lions, etc. So how difficult was it to move these tigers? What are the biggest challenges? How did you all accomplish this?
Tadoba is completely a different landscape than what has been described in terms of Similipal. Not only in terms of number of tigers, but also in terms of the coexistence system that is there. The communities around Tadoba and that entire landscape they have been living with tigers for so many years. And what we see today, the rising numbers of tigers in Maharashtra, if you look at the numbers, in 2006 it was around 106, and today it is more than 500. Officially it's 444. So this is not just because of managerial aspects, but also the communities, the way they have seen tigers. So the community support has been very instrumental. And now with rising numbers, there are challenges in terms of how to manage the increased population, because the population does not live entirely in the forest. It more than 50% of the tigers in Chandrapur landscape, they live outside the tiger reserve or protected areas. Though they live in forest and human habitations, close to human habitations, but they are in a fragmented landscape. So it's always a challenge to manage them. And fortunately, Tadoba has been connected by a lot of other tiger reserves through corridors which are well connected. Like down south there is Kaval, Indravati. On top there are some tiger reserves in Maharashtra. Then there is Navegaon, Nagzira. Then there is Kanha Tiger Reserve. In Chhattisgarh is Achanakmar. So it's all a very well connected landscape which has allowed the gene flow to happen over many years together. So I think this was the best chance of having a good biodiversity and a good diverse population of tigers. So it was not a decision to be taken from our side whether to provide it or not. It was a state-to-state communication, and considering the landscape, we are always ready to provide the gene pool wherever it is required. So I think the decision was taken, and as it has been mentioned by Prasenjeet, the project took off very well, and identification of tigers. Basically, it involves identification of individuals and then capturing those individuals. But it is not as easy as it sounds, because we need to, capturing tiger is never easy. So we need to zero in on a lot of individuals, and during that particular time window, the individual that you can get your hands on, so that is one which is getting transported. So I think it worked like that. We zeroed in on around more than 5 to 6 individuals, and during that particular time window, we could get 2 tigers after a long gap, because it was also the operation which took us a lot of time and effort, of course. And as he said, it was a very good synergistic coordination between the Odisha and the Maharashtra Forest Department. The Odisha team had come, they brought all their equipments, the team, right from the veterinary doctor to the people who are going to take care, people who are going to transport it. And it was all a very well-gelled team which worked together and accomplished that.
Thank you, that was very successful. I'll come back to you later in the second round. But Mr. Shukla, you're the current FD at Tadoba. I was there earlier this year. In 1.5 days, I saw 10 individual tigers and I saw them multiple times, and the most memorable moment was these tigers had left her two cubs and gone away. The father was also lolling around at the back somewhere. And then she came back with a wild out pup in her mouth. I mean, that was really a fantastic thing. Tadoba is incredible. I'm coming back there, sir, very soon with my entire family. Tell me, what are the current issues that Tadoba faces? And like, we just heard, how do we keep these corridors patent? India is developing at an incredibly fast pace. We know what happens when you don't have those corridors, what happens to animals, what happens to conflict. So what is happening now in Tadoba, good and bad, and how are you all as a forest department team across the country thinking of these very crucial corridors, and even if development happens, whether we have underpasses, whether we plan it differently, we are not saying no to development, but how do we keep our biodiversity loss from becoming worse?
It's on.
So, as sir is telling, means in Tadoba, management complete is the most actually critical issue there, and we are having right now around more than in Tadoba we are having around 100 tigers, and in Chandrapur district we are having more than 150 tigers. So in one district actually we are having more than 250 tigers, and that means it should be approaching 300 this time. So and because of that, on daily basis people are dying, and on average 30-40 people are dying annually in one district because of the tiger.
30-40 deaths due to tigers in one district.
Hybrid tiger, yes.
Yeah, in 1 year.
Yeah,
In that
one year. So in this actually situation, actually if you want to get the support of the people, community, and at the same time political setup, then it becomes very hard. So we have to actually manage somehow this conflict situation, and for managing that conflict situation, getting support of technology and community support, that is very critical. So on one side actually community is aggravated and community is having problem because of this tiger, and at the same time for protecting this tiger we have to get support of community.
Yes.
So it is very ironical situation which is actually prevailing in Tadoba. So that is the one issue actually we have to manage. Second issue is actually there is no boundary and the tiger are moving everywhere. So protecting tiger from the, because in past Chandpur has been a witness to actually many tiger poaching cases. So in that situation actually protecting tiger, that is the second issue which we are actually facing. And third actually habitat wise issue is in Tadoba is actually in all centrally actually this is the issue of entire country. Right now most of the tiger reserves are facing problem of weed invasion, and because of weed invasion actually availability of the food available to herbivores is actually decreasing, and because of this carrying capacity of the protected area itself in holding actually tiger is decreasing. And recently in last 3-4 years actually we have seen bamboo flowering also in Tadoba, mass bamboo flowering, and means that is also concerned because the regeneration of the bamboo at some places very good, but at some places it is scanty. So in that, so they very likely that in those areas actually also actually weed will come out, and at means simply the extent of weed is so much, na, it requires so much actually fund to actually tackle the issue. In Pench actually before this Tadoba, I was at Pench Tiger Reserve, and there actually we just roughly we estimated that we will require around 100 crore rupees per year for 5 years to actually manage weed in one tiger reserve. So who is actually going to?
Well, that's probably a losing battle anyway.
Yes,
We have to rethink this whole thing, I guess.
Yes. So
But,
that is these are the issues, and we are actually managing.
So I hear you. We are talking about invasive weeds taking over areas of our forest where there should be food for the prey animals, and therefore tigers and others are moving out. Communities, while they may be willing to support tigers, certainly don't want to get either killed or other children taken away or elephants destroying their crops. So it is going to become more and more of an issue in India, wildlife conflict. The Forest Department, unfortunately or fortunately through the Wildlife Act of 72, supposedly owns all the animals of this country. So farmers will say, "Tumhara animal hai, leke jao." So we really have to rethink the Wildlife Act of 1972. And one thing is, sometimes the media will only play up all the bad stuff, that oh, somebody died, and then it agitates people into against animals, and that makes their work 1,000 times harder. So I think these issues have to be reported much more sensitively by the media as well, just in case any of my media colleagues are in the room. But we'll come back to you, sir. But let me move to the tiger of authorities, the NTCA. And Mr. Kale, there is a big role that NTCA plays, and the research component that made this all possible. How does the NTCA currently support research? One of the things that I support several organizations that are working on environment and climate issues around the country. And one of the things that I keep hearing is, I wish we could get more permissions to go into our forest and protected areas and do the research that this country needs, because our biodiversity is seriously our strategic imperative for this country in the future. So coming from that point of view about research and science, how do we encourage it? It cannot be only a government monopoly. We have to invite all sorts of other institutions into Samaj, Sarkar, Bazaar, sabko aana padega isme. How do you feel as NTCA about this?
As I am at NTCA, I am Assistant Inspector General of Central India. I will
Yes.
give some examples of NTCA and before NTC also.
Okay.
Also, with these two officers, Ramgor sir was my boss at Tadoba. Till last year, I was at Tadoba, and whole operation was part of my
Okay, you
duty
were
also.
very much part of it.
So then I came to NTC on other side.
Okay.
I will give an example of this project. The project we done after before this. That is NCBS with the Tadoba Foundation is doing a project on food preferences of major carnivore and major herbivore in Tadoba landscape on a spatial and temporal basis. That is on space, on time. And I think it is extended to beyond Tadoba also. So we were apprehensive how we'll get the permissions or all sort. But the subject was dear to me because we required it for our management purpose.
Yes.
So the then field director came out with the idea because we require this research for our tiger conservation plan. So we will do the research. So for management purpose, the permissions are not required. We are doing research for our management. So the ways, if there is a synergy, then we can find many ways. And NTCA is best, whether NTCA from 2006 or the NTCA, that is the Project Tiger before 2006. The starting of Project Tiger was science-based, on database. It was from the scientific communities and wildlifers. It came that the tiger numbers are going down. Habitat, there is great habitat loss. So we need to conserve some landscape, and then Project Tiger started. What happened in 2006? There was issue of Sariska happened, and this Panna debacle happened. Then this camera trap and the methodologies were brought by the Wildlife Institute of India and scientists from this landscape. Dr. Karanth came with the new idea of camera trapping.
Yes.
And then the whole the data-based, science-based conservation took place, and now we are in the 6th cycle of this All India Tiger Estimation.
Yes.
And in this process, all are taking part. Okay, WI is our partner in science, that is in All India Tiger Estimation. But NCBS, we are fortunate to have worked for last 13 years with NCBS. I personally, different students of NCBS, I am working with. Some of are my gurus, like Aditya Joshi, who taught me GIS, Milind, Anish Chanderiya, this Prasenjeet.
Yes.
Okay, so being at NTCA, we are dealing with persons,
Right.
whether it is Prasenjeet or Aditya. So there will be no blanket permissions, but the permissions depend on the quality of project and the institution behind the project. So they will come and they will as time we are becoming more science-based organization also, they will come easily in future.
So you are saying that if I was, if I had an authentic research project, luckily it won't come from me, I'm not a scientist, but if people wanted to do some serious research, if they were obviously trustworthy, they had the right credentials, etc., that it should not be so difficult to get permissions to do research in protected areas?
Of course not.
Of course not. Sir?
Yeah.
Of course not. What do you?
They should be encouraged.
There's a camera.
I would just like to come in here. See, we have a well-established systems at I think every state level now.
Okay.
At different levels, the proposals which are being handled at a particular sanctuary,
Okay.
the authorities have been delegated to the field officers,
Yes.
and only proposals which are encompassing multiple sanctuaries or multiple states that go to the higher level. So I think people who are working now, I think hundreds of projects are even going as I speak in Maharashtra
I see.
at different sanctuaries.
That's
I don't think
wonderful.
that's a
Wonderful to hear. Thank you so much.
I will give an example of certain particular project. In that project, what we discussed, we were finding there are no funds available from any institution. So Dr. Ramgopal came with the idea, this is our project, we will fund it. Tadava Foundation funded whole the project with NCBS, and it is now giving multiple results. That is in territorial area. I think the paper will come out. They are coming, so it will be an interesting result for next 2 years. Next 2 years.
Well, thank you. That was very encouraging for me. Just by the way, before I turn to Robin, in this room, how many people have seen tigers outside tiger reserves and protected areas?
Outside.
Outside tiger reserves, not on safari, outside. Yeah, okay. Alright, I seem to bump into them all the time. I don't know, maybe I'm going to the wrong places. Robin, the role of science cannot be underestimated in conservation. It's becoming more and more clear. We want to use all the latest technologies and camera traps. So there is some confusion which I personally encountered when I produced a film on the Nilgiris recently, where we were not allowed to use camera trap footage in the film because a Tamil Nadu Forest Department said that is not permitted. I could not find any clause anywhere which says it is not permitted, but we removed everything, all the camera trap, beautiful footage which we had. Prasen, you couldn't have shown all that, huh? Because in our film you could not have shown it. But I feel at least, and I'm not fighting with anybody, but I feel like if we don't use all these technologies, how are we going to know where the wild animals are so that we are not in conflict with them, we can help to protect them? Sometimes I feel like our laws are made as though all 100% of the Indian population is a criminal, which it is not. It's going to be 5% or less. Can we make laws for 95% of the people and have better fraud analysis to catch people who are doing the wrong things so that the rest of us can breathe easier? So when it comes to camera traps, when it comes to audio, acoustic monitors, what is your feeling about the role of science in conservation, and how should government departments who have the full mandate to do conservation look at this?
Yeah, this is a tough one. But I think that ultimately, although there is technology, ultimately it's a social kind of decision, and some of these decisions are made by people. So you can have technology, but the trust behind the technology needs to come based on some engagement. So you could have the best technology like genetics or acoustics or camera traps, but unless there is a element of converting this technology and how this works for other stakeholders, the information needs to be communicated in a clear manner.
Right.
Unless that happens, this is the uptake of the technology will be more difficult. And I think
Can you give an example?
Yeah, so the tiger is a great example because I feel like in India, the tiger work has kind of pushed a lot of boundaries of how we do science, whether it is counting animals. I mean, globally we have done that, first with line transect and things like that, and then with camera traps. I think this is the largest exercise with camera traps. We probably know every individual tiger is we photographed, and then with cats, with DNA, and Uma's work has kind of pushed this to another level where we are looking at genes that are responsible, and now that has gone into action where you're introducing genetic rescue is happening. Well, there's no other species where we have this level of close connection of science and technology to real life application. But this could not have happened without some translation and people like Prasen coming in there and telling these stories that this is not all bad. It's very easy for people who are not trained to use specific technologies to be distrustful of certain techniques. So I think camera traps took its time before it started being accepted. Bioacoustics and acoustic monitoring will also take its time. Earlier it was GIS and remote sensing. People would say, no, we need to go there and see everything. And slowly, the trust kind of built that there is a margin of error, but some things can be used.
It can be ground truthed also later where possible.
That's right.
Physically,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So any new technologies you want to tell us about around the corner? Your bioacoustics is of course critical. So far, have all of you looked at bioacoustics and how you will use acoustic, what are they called, audio moths and all those kind of things in the forest?
Yeah, it may be relevant to certain species where only acoustic sampling is possible, like birds. Most of the time, you don't have any other way of sampling those things. But I think in terms of new technologies that you mentioned, I think a lot of things are under development. One is artificial intelligence based detecting animals and creating alerts, particularly for communities which are living close to the forest areas. We have been able to install few of the units in Tadoba, and it has given us good results, and now it is being scaled up at the state level. Now I think another thing that is in the development, like its conceptualization state, may be development of digital twins, because these are complex systems, and complex systems, it is very difficult to simulate, and simulation has to go at the digital twin level to make any informed decisions or any bringing any sense of predictability to that. And I think going with the flow of the role of science in all these things, there is a sense of inevitability now that it's going to happen. It is inevitable. You cannot just keep it delaying, because the kind of challenges that we are facing, the fragmentation of habitat that's happening, the pressures from the developmental side and from the forest department side, and also we are part of the government, so we need to balance both the sides. So if you have to have development and you can say conservation and increasing conservation, because it's not just about protecting what is there, we need to enhance it, conserve it, and lost species have to gain their own old grounds. We need to rewild certain areas, we have to increase number of species, number of individuals in particular species. There are species which are already on the brink of extinction, like the great Indian bustard. So those challenges are there. I think it is not possible to do all these things without the help of science. It's already happening, and probably where it is not reached now, it is only a matter of time that we all have to take science-based decisions on every single day.
How would you say that you will get the resources to deploy the right emerging new technology? And what would you want of people outside the forest department, outside institutions and people outside the forest department and the government? How would you want partnerships? How do you want more trust to build between institutions outside government to deploy science for conservation?
I think one of the very important aspects is about prioritizing what we want to do, because a lot of things are happening at the institute level, but there is some kind of disconnect between what is required in the field and what is being done. So suppose you go to a landscape like Chandrapur, the biggest issue is about man-animal conflict, where around 40 to 50 human beings lose life every year. I think it's a very big problem for anybody. But whether we have been able to find solutions for solving that kind of problem, whether pre-augmentation in certain areas where stocking of animal is less. So we need to find certain solutions for that. If there are animals for which we need to reduce the population, because sometimes landscapes reach to that level that we need to control the population, because population management doesn't only involve increasing the population, it also involves reducing the population, managing the population. Reproduction rate has to be controlled to some extent, but probably the research in that direction is limited, or maybe it has not reached the field level. So if I think there is a synergy between the institutes and the requirement of the management across the country, I think it will have a faster adaptation, and I think resources should not be a problem, because at every state enough funds, enough resources are being dedicated to conservation projects. Of course it is not enough, but I think if there are good projects, there are partners which you can find. There are a lot of organizations which are willing to partner with the forest department and institutes on collaborative projects which are going to lead to a greater good.
If you wanted to make, any of you come in, if you wanted to make a call to philanthropy, to Indian philanthropy and CSR, what would you ask for? Yeah, go ahead, Vivash.
I would say properly evaluate the ecosystem services. We are talking about human-wildlife conflict. We are blaming it on the animals. Elephant is coming and eating so much of crop from, or raiding so much of crop from my field. Nowhere we are talking how much of benefits we are deriving from the habitats that we are protecting for elephants and tigers.
Okay, philanthropy, they won't know when you say support this. What do you mean by that? Support institutions that are doing research on ecosystem services?
What I am saying, our bureaucrats, our decision makers, our politicians must understand that we are not protecting this forest for these wild animals, we are protecting this forest for our own people.
Okay.
And that has to be not in terms of how much of air, how much of oxygen, not all those intangible benefits. I am talking about direct, the water coming out of our protected areas, the kind of agriculture benefits that we are deriving. You take the case of Satpura Tiger Reserve, you take the case of entire Tarai Arc landscape in the sub-Himalayan foothills, the entire agriculture economy is sustained because of the elephant and tiger habitats. If those rivers, see, I work in the state Uttarakhand, UP and Bihar, there are 3 snow-fed rivers, Ganga, Yamuna and Sarada. None of these three snow-fed rivers contribute a single drop of water to the agriculture economy of the state of Uttarakhand. Entire agriculture of Uttarakhand is sustained by the rivers that are rain-fed rivers which are originating from tiger and elephant habitat. We are paying say 10 crore rupees for compensation for elephant and wild pig crop depredation. Look at the revenue that we are generating, or look at the income of people. We are generating more than 1,000 crore of agriculture produce from these because of the rivers that are coming from the forest. So there are many such examples across the country. You talk the case of Periyar Tiger Reserve, you take the case of Central Indian Highlands in Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, the Vindhyas and the other hill ranges in Central India, you take the case of sub-Himalayan foothills. We need to come up with very quantitative information to counter this argument that because of wildlife we are losing so much of resources. It's wrong. Because of wildlife our life is being sustained in most part of this country.
Very well said. Uma, Robin, you want to role of communication. How do you communicate better using evidence-based, science-based data, etc., to tell people exactly what Vivash just said?
Sorry, I was going to comment on the
Okay,
previous
fine,
question because you were asking about what needs to be done,
yes.
and I feel like one of the big gaps is that the tech that exists in India. We seem to have a lot of skills in various technical skills in automotive industry and in just software and hardware. So many things we are able to develop, but we are not able to put it together for biodiversity when it comes to biodiversity conservation. For example, some simple things like acoustic recorders, arrays of microphones are being used in automobile industry as a standard kind of thing. But there is no engineer who's kind of crossed over from that to the biodiversity area. So I feel like there are a lot of people who are interested and who may want to kind of move over and contribute to the field, but there is no place that kind of permits that interaction for the field to kind of develop.
Yeah, so we need a lot better linkages.
Yeah, with other industries that are
with
already
other
there.
Industries, and I was just talking to Gary of Anthropic yesterday, and he seems very hopeful that AI will come in a big way for biodiversity monitoring and therefore prevention of loss. So we really have to see how government procedures, processes, trust building can happen between even private sector and the government to allow us to deploy AI so that the forest department's goals are better met. Before I open it up, again I'm coming back to NTCA because it's been very, very important, very, very successful. Thank you for all our tigers. And however, people I have seen, communities do not want their areas to be declared as tiger reserves because of the various restrictions that come in. What is your feeling? How do we counter this? We have got enough evidence why we need our biodiversity, why we need our tigers, flagship species. How do we counter this slight animosity by the public? The Kerala government has drafted a law which seems, at least to a layperson like me, a bit frightening. The amendments they have made to the Wildlife Act. Part of it is coming from this public resentment about all the conflict. What are you feeling? How do we counter this?
being at this position, I may not comment on everything.
No, don't comment
But-
on Kerala at all.
But I will, because of my experience, especially at Tadoba, the public in buffer, they are not resenting to tigers
Okay.
because they are benefiting in a great way. Not resenting that much. That is, their resentment, there may be some resentment when there is some death or they are cooperating. But as compared to the number of tigers they are holding, in Tadoba core and buffer, they are holding more than 100 tigers, 100 villages. But they know that every tiger, it is their family is family income is due to these tigers.
Is it because of tourism or something else?
It is due to tourism, basically tourism and tourism related other businesses, and also the tourism money which is deposited in foundation. I think it is this year it is good, nearly 40 crores. 1/3 of that money directly goes to the village kitty.
Okay.
That is roughly they will get more than 10 lakh per village if it
The
is.
Gram Panchayat directly?
Yeah, Gram Sabha.
Gram Sabha.
Gram Sabha. Moreover, they will benefit from gypsies, homestays, and guides also. They are in good numbers. Tadoba tourism and basically is buffer tourism.
Yes.
So the resentment level is really low there, really low, and they help in every way. Also this for last 4-5 years, this you said philanthropy. I want to comment about that also.
Yeah.
That also the CSR foundations are doing. Some foundations are doing very good work
Yes.
in this sector also.
Yes.
That is habitat management and wildlife management also. If I am allowed, I'll give one example. ICSA Foundation.
Yes, I think some people are here today. Yeah.
ICSA Foundation from last they helped us in weed removal in a big way,
Yes.
not few lakhs, but I think they have paid crores of
Crores,
rupees
okay.
in Tadoba, Painch, Satpura, Madhya Pradesh, and without any big buzz outside. They have done excellent work, but it was based on science.
Yes.
They took help of scientists who are good in grassland management, and who the scientists, Dr. Muratkar and others who work with WI also, basically, and help from their studies. They studies the food preferences of herbivores. So, and based on that, we tried to make Tadoba as much as weed free, and I think it is the weed removal is not lost cause. We will succeed, but we have to prioritize landscapes.
Right.
Landscape, the core and buffer area, we have to prioritize landscape. And WI have very good database about this weed. They have made weed map of India,
Right.
and they also prioritized area where we have to work. So I think and also the NTCA role came not only for tiger reserves, but this you said corridors.
Yes.
Corridors.
Most important.
And NTC has a primary role to identify corridors to protect the corridors. And I think as an organization, we are doing fairly good work in that direction, and we will continue to do.
Thank you so much. I think I'll open it up to this audience. And right at the end, all of you will give you a chance to say one closing, 2 sentences each. But very quickly, what is the time? I have no idea what is the time. Is there any timekeeper? 12:30. You want us to do 15 minutes? All right. Please go ahead. Identify yourselves. Whom is the question raised to? And we'll take your comments during lunch. Now we'll just have questions. Yeah. Anybody?
I'm Vaishnavi. So I had a question about the corridors. So you mentioned that corridors are like upcoming. How do you identify like such corridors? Because like, is it according to the proximity of sanctuaries, and what are the difficulties you face with the officials and the locals as well to like identify such corridors?
There are a lot of techniques available to identify corridors. First and foremost thing is your experience. People know from which area to which area animals are moving. That is the first thing, basic thing we gather from experienced people, experienced officers, experienced staff on the ground. Second thing is we have a lot of techniques now. There is something called least cost analysis. So when you do over large geographical area, we find out which are the patches, which are the connecting ones. Then third thing what Uma is doing is genetics, how animals are moving from one area to the other. So there are a lot of tools available now, and corridors have been identified also. At a national level, based on the All India Tiger Population Estimation exercise, we have mapped corridors, but those needs lot of refinement. Those are very broad scale mapping has taken place, but we have a clear idea where all corridors are there. Good thing that is happening in our country is development agencies, when they are coming up with their program, earlier everything was finalized. When the road was coming to the forest, people were staging protest. No, this is important wildlife area. Now the project proponents are actually looking at overlaying their programs or their plan of action against the wildlife corridors, and coming up before the DPR or detailed project report is prepared, they are coming up with what kind of mitigation measures that we can provide. Having said all those things, every area it is not necessary that mitigation measures have to be provided. Certain areas have to stay inviolate. Certain corridors need to be maintained in their form as they are today. So lot of information, and knowledge is power. More and more people work, identify places, more knowledge will come, will further refine the corridors. But the basic knowledge of corridor is available at the moment.
Any other questions? Please raise your hands. The room didn't have breakfast? Okay, yeah, there's a hand here. Oh, there's two now, okay. Warming up.
Hello, so my name is Nisha. So you mentioned that Similipal and Tadoba tiger reserves have very different landscapes. So I assume even geographically and ecologically they're different. So when you move tigers from one place to another, are there any adaptive challenges that the tigers face even while you translocate from within the same country?
Yeah, I can answer that. So at least from a perspective of evolution, there are no signatures of local adaptation from a genetic perspective across tiger landscapes in India. One population where they might be is the Sundarbans, and that's not been studied extensively enough. We are hoping to start on that soon. But we did look at this, and this is one of the criteria, evolutionary uniqueness, and we didn't find a signature of that. So in general also tigers are, they are carnivores, top carnivores, but they're generalists. They live from the Russian Far East all the way to the island Southeast Asia. They live in very, very varied habitats. So of course this is separate from the behavioral question of what happens when an animal is introduced into a new environment. That's a completely different on-ground thing. It's a theoretical and conceptual answer, but I'll let maybe someone else take the other one.
By the way, both the tigresses that were shifted from Tadoba to Similipal, they have gained, put on a lot of weight, so don't worry.
They're doing well.
They're doing well. And as Uma told, tigers survive from minus 50 degree to plus 50 degree. They are there 5,000 meter. Snow leopard and tigers overlap, they are there till the sea level. Some places below sea level also. So extremely adaptable.
So tigers basically are explorers.
Yes.
This is an example that where we have transported them artificially from one place to other. So that doesn't happen in nature. So in nature, tigers have traveled thousands of kilometers. There was just a recent case in Maharashtra where a tiger from Tipeshwar was found in Dharashiv. It's around 700 kilometers. And there is a record that one tiger has traveled more than 1200 kilometers.
Yes.
So
3,000
3,000
kilometers
kilometers. So
from Brahmapuri to Odisha.
yes, probably it has gone on its own. So it doesn't. I don't think that's the issue.
So they are walkers, huh? Not Johnny Walker walkers.
Walking tigers.
There's a question in the front.
Please go ahead.
So, I'm Vijay Krishnan from JNCSR. I'm a postdoc researcher. My background is basically from physics. My question was to Dr. Roma. So, it's in the similar lines of what the earlier question was. What is the isolation that you see in Similipal? What exactly? I mean, do you have any? You had mentioned about this isolation in your talk, but I really did not understand what is causing this isolation. Is it geographical? Or?
Yeah, that's a great question. In the interest of time, I didn't go over it, but we did explore it in our paper. So basically, when you look at the landscape surrounding Similipal and the other tiger reserves and so on, you find when you do landscape modeling and modeling of individual movement, Similipal is simply too far away. So like they were saying, in central India, there are many source populations. There's Kanha, there's Pench, there's Tadoba. So many populations which are relatively closer to each other. Though there are a lot of people in development, tigers are able to move. So basically they are subsisting as a metapopulation with multiple sources and individuals moving around. Unfortunately, there is no source for Similipal tigers. Of course there are individual dispersal events, but they are very rare. And so far, at least in our known history, there has been no individual who has come in and bred there. So yeah, so it's basically too far.
So I want to follow up, or anyone can answer. So is there one critical piece of corridor or something from Similipal that needs to be opened so that you can keep on transporting tigers, but to make it more naturally, is there one thing that needs to be done?
No, it's not the question of
One thing
corridor.
or two
It is forest. There are a lot of trees around Similipal.
Yes.
But from a wildlife, from a tiger perspective, there is no forest. Forest in the sense, forest should have grassland, forest should have lot of spotted deer, lot of sambar, lot of gore, lot of wild animal for the tigers to survive. Unfortunately, in the entire east central landscape, which consists of Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and Odisha, there are no breeding population of tiger other than Similipal right now. Yes. Imagine Odisha has 39% of its geographical area under forest cover, but no breeding population of tiger. So that's why this stray movement is there, but that is not enough to establish a population or enough for genetic exchange.
So there's too much change required for that.
See, too many people eating meat.
There
is the problem. Okay, that's the problem. So too many poor people thriving on cheapest source of protein or wild meat. Hunting for pot is the biggest problem in this east central landscape, and that needs to be changed. So that's where we should take Forest Right Act as an advantage and convert this forest into ranching of animals. Promote animals there. Let people rear those animals, kill them and eat them, not deplete animals from protected areas.
Will that require changes in the
lot of changes.
So why doesn't civil society together with the Forest Department come up with a new strawman Wildlife Protection Act, which can be discussed in public, threadbare for 1 year, and then go to lawmakers to make changes and amendments that are absolutely needed in 2025, because otherwise none of the wonderful people on this stage are going to be able to succeed. We need some changes. So you want to come in on this?
The Act has been recently amended. I think there are a lot of provisions. What happens is we have a lot of documents already in place, like there is a National Wildlife Action Plan. There are state wildlife action plans in a state like Maharashtra. There are provisions in the law to do whatever measures that need to be done. But what we need is detailing of those things, putting them into executionable plans, and putting our resources in implementing those things. So I think, and it is not that it is not happening, it's happening. But the pace at which it needs to happen, because we are running against the speed of development. The force of development is too huge to match. So I think we also need to work hard on that, and we need to match that pressure that is coming from all sides. And fortunately for us, I think in most of the forest areas of the country, the frontline staff, the ground level workers who are staying inside the forest 24/7, they are working really hard in the remotest of the area, and which are not mostly seen by any one of us who are living close to the towns and cities, but they are really working, and we have been fortunate to witness that and be one of them for a while. So I think there is hope, and I think a lot of positive things are coming. Our wildlife population is not going down. We are, I think, in a better position to take some positive steps, some positives from the things that are happening around. Tiger is just an example, but whenever you see recovery of tiger, it also signifies the recovery of the underlying ecosystems. Otherwise, the tiger numbers doesn't mean anything. Okay. So I think that is what is happening. Of course, there is a lot of work to be done, a lot of efforts to be done, a lot of fighting to be done, but it's all happening, and we hope that with the help of everybody, civil society, government machinery, NGOs, scientific institutions, I think we are on a right track.
Yeah, my name is Ramesh. I come from Mumbai. So I think we are putting CCF on the spot, but there is a political system in our country. So I think a lot of things, the IFS officers have to follow, and so many things. And we as public, we can't talk too much about the permissions and so many other things unless it's requires for the unions or researchers and all that. But that was not my question. Just pull Mr. Jitendra out of the spot. I'm talking about this. My question was that, Doctor, do you have any hazards in the isolated areas of prey species? So when we are speaking about Similipal having isolated species of tigers, away from, as sir also said. So did we also work out any on the hazard side of it, or because they're taking tigers from Tadoba and taking to Similipal? So if there could be a paper or a white paper on this, it could be good for us to know.
So I think I understood your question as the prey are also isolated. Yeah. Are there other effects? And yes, we have focused only on tigers. Yeah. But in more recent work, we've been doing multi-species analyses of connectivity. For example, we've done that in the Central Indian landscape, in the Tarai Arc landscape. We were trying to look at multiple species, suites of like 6-7 species, because tiger is just one. So I think, yes, herbivores are really important, understudied, but extremely important for us to understand much better.
Great. And the physical factors as well?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
There is yes.
So my question is that when Professor Uma started with the mystery of the black tiger really, so does it really help with the traditionally trusted communicators or community actors when they receive this new scientific information in terms of the research done? So does it help to reduce the human-wildlife conflict around those areas, or the traditional knowledge or the trust factor becomes a barrier rather than an enabler in such cases?
You want to take it? I can try. Yeah, so I have to say that I'm a scientist, and I haven't tried to go to that level of communication, to communicate to local communities, but the best we have done so far is, in the Nandankanan Zoo, where they have black tigers, we've helped put up like a hoarding about why this tiger looks this way, and that's just general communication. But I totally get what you're saying, and I think that local theatre, local storytelling would be wonderful to do. I don't think I'm the best person to probably do it, but it would be really wonderful to work with someone who can do that.
Tigers is traditionally also linked to our cultural aspects in a lot of landscapes.
Yes.
One of the landscape that is very strongly connected is our Tadoba landscape. Because if you go around in villages, you can see small temples dedicated to tigers, with the statues. And surprisingly, those statues are built in a place where there has been incident where a tiger has killed a human being. So it's kind of a small statue of tiger representing the soul of that tiger and restraining that so that it protects the human beings living in that area. So I think a lot of stories are there, and knowledge based, of course, with the traditional communities, the knowledge passes on from hundreds of years. So there is a knowledge base. You can get a lot of insights into wildlife of that area just by interacting with people, and there have been efforts to document that.
May I add this Similipal aspect of it? Because Similipal is trying to enhance their ecotourism, and this story in National Geographic about black tigers will definitely help ecotourism boost in Similipal, and ultimately communities, they are involving a lot of communities around Similipal into their tourism. Ultimately it will benefit the communities because there is really issue of unemployment among the tribals in that area, and to reduce the dependency on forest ultimately, which will help both communities and the forest, Similipal forest.
I think he's been waiting for
My name is Sanchit and I come from the National Law School, Bangalore. This is a question for Professor Uma. On what basis was the black tiger identified and named T12, and did you use a specific cataloging system which was specific to Similipal?
So that is basically every forest department has a catalog. So they have these camera trapping sessions that happen. So they have like a ID for each individual, and as the number of tigers grow, it becomes T15, T20, T30, and so on and so forth. So T12 just happens to be the number actually of a dominant male, which is a fascinating hook, for this story. But yeah, he's an individual who has fathered many offspring, and so that's also why the inbreeding is an issue in Similipal, because most of the individuals around today are his offspring, and he's still mating. So he's still a dominant male who's mating with all of those individuals. Yeah.
Should we take one more? Yeah, go ahead.
What if?
Your name?
I'm Makran, and question for all of you. What if you bring tigers from Siberia who are bigger in size, more territorial, and you put them in Similipal and let them breed to increase your genetic diversity? Is it possible? Because if Ambani's kid can get his own thing, why cannot we, as a country? Which policy is stopping you?
There is no need.
I think any decision regarding translocating an animal, introducing something in the population, reintroducing an animal, these decisions are based on the requirement of the ecology. If there is no requirement of a Siberian tiger in our landscape, then it doesn't make any point, it doesn't make any sense to go for that and putting our resources and energy into that. So I think it's not going to be a question.
एक्चुअली उसमें जो
मतलब
जब भी हम कोई एक स्पीसीज दूसरी जगह पे अगर हम कर रहे हैं और वो एलियन है, तो क्या उस स्पीसीज का वहाँ कैसे इंटरेक्शन होगा, क्या रोल होगा, एंड जो वहाँ एग्जिस्टिंग ऑलरेडी स्पीसीज है वो कैसे उसको देखेंगे, ये हमें पता नहीं है. तो मतलब जैसे आप अगर हिमालयन रीजन में स्नो लेपर्ड का वो जो साइबेरियन आपका टाइगर ला रहे हैं, तो क्या उसका रिएक्शन होगा. तो अगर हम साइबेरियन टाइगर ला करके स्नो लेपर्ड अगर के पॉपुलेशन पे नेगेटिव अगर इम्पैक्ट पड़ रहा है, तो इसलिए एक्चुअली मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम जब भी हम ट्रांसलोकेशन करते हैं तो हम कोई भी एलियन स्पीसीज जो हिस्टोरिकल, अगर वो हिस्टोरिकली वहाँ है, देन वी ट्राई टू एक्चुअली उसको इंट्रोड्यूस करने का कोशिश करते हैं, बट इंट्रोडक्शन को वी डोंट प्रिफर. Reintroduction we prefer.
So I'll just add to that. That's a wonderful point that you made about historical occurrence, and that's precisely why we've been breaking our backs trying to get these trophies. Because as you said, in Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Bihar, Odisha, tigers are almost gone, but they are in people's houses, in their living rooms. And so if we can understand that past, we can really understand how did Similipal become isolated? What tigers did we lose? Did we lose variation? Did we lose something? Or is it still around somewhere today?
It would also amount to disturbing with the process of evolution, because the environment in which that particular species has evolved, it won't be able to adapt so suddenly to a different landscape. And ranges, if you look at ranges, I think maybe 1500 to 2000 square kilometers is the range for the Siberian tiger, because of the extremely low prey densities, which is not true in our landscape.
So we're almost at a close. Shall I give everyone one sentence closing remark? What is your wish looking forward? And there's we're not trying to put any forest department people on the spot. They cannot be accountable for a whole department. We are asking questions that are very important to be answered in a public discourse like this. But what do you all wish for? What do you hope for the future of our biodiversity from your particular experiences?
I think, as a citizen of this country, and we are seeing a lot of conservation efforts going around, I think we should be extremely proud and extremely hopeful for our situation, because more than 70% of the world's tiger live in India, and with such a high density of population. So that really makes one feel that we have actually been able to give space to animals in our heart. If you look at communities that are living around tiger reserves, you don't hear complaints about wild animals destroying their farmland, wild animals. Even if a person of that family is lost, I think they are still not resentful towards that animal. So that is something which is to be very proud of, and it should give all of us a great sense of hope that we are in a good position to secure our wildlife. And with the effort that is being put forth by frontline workers of the Wildlife and Forest Department, which are working extremely hard situations and difficult positions in the remotest corners of the country, I think, at least in my heart, I have great hope.
It's on.
Actually, we have done very good work in tiger conservation, and because due to tiger conservation, entire ecosystem has actually have been actually strengthened. So along with actually tiger, actually my wish is to actually study and to increase the other wildlife population. Also we have actually depleted in past, and actually aware the people, aware the community, aware the management about those animals.
Thank you.
I would say take extra care of people, especially philanthropic organizations who are telling, take extra care of people living in and around protected areas, educate them, empower them, employ them, develop their skills, both green skill development as well as life skill developments. And some of the fantastic people are there in our rural areas who can do great service to this country. Educate, empower and employ them, develop their skills.
My ultimate wish is that let there be chain of community conservancies from Tadoba to Similipal, owned by communities, run by communities, and no.
Is there a model like that anywhere?
There are some.
No, in Africa, yes.
But there are some good examples done by sir in Tadoba.
Around 150 hectares.
But
You have
very,
to make a
very small.
documentary on it.
Very small. But I think there should be no further need of genetic rescue in this.
There should be no more genetic. You'll be out of a job.
No, but ultimately there will be study that if the genetic rescue is not needed,
How shell is flowing.
The genetic rescue is not needed, it will be declared by her.
By her. Okay, fine. We're keeping you. Okay.
Yeah, I think that tigers are like the epitome of research in the wild, and probably now it's time to kind of consider other species. So I'd like to kind of support that thought that switch to looking at other species that are
Name
not.
Name two.
Yeah, it's easy for me, but
Say,
I think
say.
maybe some frogs.
Frogs,
So there are some
okay.
frogs that are really understudied. We don't know how much they move.
Okay.
It should be fairly easy to study how far frogs move,
Yeah.
but we know more about how tigers move.
Right.
We don't know how some of these
Another
birds
species
move.
of birds.
Yeah.
Okay, birds and frogs. Done. Okay.
I'm on the spot, but I think I really like that this interface, because I know that scientists we live in very different worlds from managers and, all of us actually, and I hope that we can continue to work together. Collaboration is really, really important, and it's also a fun way to see the future as one where we all work together and we're all so rewarded with the results of collaboration in the future of wildlife. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you to my fabulous panel. I think we are so grateful to the Forest Department all over the country. We are so proud to be part of a 5,000-year unbroken culture of being part of nature, respecting that we are one tiny microscopic element in this glorious diversity. And this kind of story, with Prasenjeet, with Uma, with the Forest Department's research, gives us even more hope. What a fabulous story. Thank you to the panel. Thank you to the audience.
Yeah. Wow, what an amazing morning this has been. I'm actually a neurobiologist by training, and I learned a lot today, and I hope all of you also have learned a lot. I saw, Uma describe what was nothing short of a detective story, like Sherlock Holmes following all the little clues and solving a puzzle. And not only stopping at solving the puzzle, but going further and what we call as translational, right? Translational biological research is not only taking things to the clinic, but also taking things to the forest. And that is a lesson that we all must imbibe and think about it in terms of what India can do as a beacon of protecting its biodiversity. As Rohini was mentioning, we have a long history and a heritage of conservation and protecting biodiversity. I just would like to quote a little bit from Sangam poetry. This is about 1,500-year-old Tamil poetry, and it says, Pudakku puliyum valiye, pulikku pudalum valiyai vidam, meaning the tiger protects the forest, and the forest protects the tiger. And this was written in the 5th century by Moondurai Arainar, who was a Jain scholar. And such is the understanding that a tiger not only is living in the forest, but it's protecting every element of the forest. And this, the world is beginning to appreciate only now. And to think that we have that heritage and history of understanding biodiversity and wanting to conserve it, as someone was saying, imbibing it into our spirituality and making it part of our culture. That is something that we should continue to remember, and we should continue to practice in every walk of life. I don't want to draw on for too long. I just want to say that the amazing grit and resilience that Prasenjeet showed in terms of following what he ultimately was successful in doing, in tracking down these tigers. Amazing, you have to persist on a question, and you have to be driven by passion. And I salute your passion in terms of trying to bring this story to light. And then of course, all of our forestry department officials, those that are here today, and those that have worked behind the scenes and couldn't be here today, we cannot have achieved the translocation of the tigers and rescuing this population without the cooperation and the understanding and the scientific belief that the forestry department brings to the table, right? And so every element of this journey has been truly remarkable, and I also thank Rohini for asking all the interesting and difficult and tough questions, and for everybody for giving very candid answers. So where do we go from here? I hope to see more and more stories emerge like this, where we see things going from the forest back to the lab, and from lab back to the forest, and then to policy, and to see that India shows to the world how truly conservation can be done with a scientific edge. With that, I would also like to thank some key people who made this event possible. From both my behalf and Shashi's behalf, I would like to thank our NCBS meetings and communications office people, led by Rupsi and Kriti and Vaishnavi, and also the administration. All of you here for making it and for attending, and Rohini for doing the panel discussion so ably. Thank you all, and hope to see you at lunch. Thank you.
Thank you.